I have a problem. I'm addicted to insanely difficult Boneworks challenges. After finishing the game without gripping, I thought, what's harder than gripless? Gripless with one hand, of course. So I made a mod which disables gripping, removes Ford's right arm, and disables the inputs on the right controller. Now without further ado, please sit back and enjoy my suffering. To begin, we vault over the tutorial bench like speedrunners normally do. It's harder to lift our body with one arm, but Ford just barely has the strength to do it. It's easier if you can keep your arm straight and pointing downwards instead of bent or pointing forwards. From there we just let auto crouch lift our legs over the obstacle. The rest of Break Room and Starter Museum are trivial, so I've sped the video up. If you're familiar with Boneworks speedruns, you may have noticed that I'm not B-hopping to go faster, and that's because without the right hand controller I cannot use the jump button. However, despite this, it actually is still possible to jump. Here you can see that if I jump in the real world, Ford jumps along with me. And if I activate slow-mo, the game thinks I'm jumping faster than I am in real time, and the extra velocity sends Ford even higher. For the rest of this run, every time you see me jump, remember that I'm doing a jump in real life to achieve this. Also something to note is that by activating 2 times slow-mo and jumping in real life, you can jump almost twice as high as the game's jump button by itself, but it's still much smaller than a speedrun super jump, where you jump in real life and with the button as well. After clearing this first puzzle, we have some more running before encountering something a bit trickier. We need to put the key in the lock without gripping it, and only one hand. Luckily for us, slow-mo makes balancing it doable. By pushing it against the wall, I can wedge my hand underneath and pick it up. Then, very carefully, I can carry it to the lock. Unfortunately I drop it here, but it's not a big deal because I'm right next to the lock anyway. Finally, I hot potato it into the lock and continue to streets. The route for streets is the standard speedrun route, where we climb the wall and lure the boss claw by putting a turret onto the street. The only differences are that because I cannot grip, I have to roll the turret, and because I cannot jump easily, I hook my head onto the boss claw's latch to get on top of it. Without gripping, I cannot do the fling, so I just wait for the boss claw to go near the finish, then jump off over the fence and run to the end of the level. For Runoff, I get out of bounds by climbing to the window like this, then smashing it with my head and carefully climbing through it. Once out of bounds in this level, all you need to do is just run to the finish. Sewers is another level with a lot of running, so I'll just speed through it. At the pillar to the left right now, I could clip out of bounds to avoid picking up a key later, but the jumps required on the out of bounds route are too big, so I need to go this way even though it's more annoying. Right now I need to take the key from the back of this room all the way to the lock. But before that, I clear out the zombies so that they don't interfere and knock the key around. The strat here is to push the key along the ground until we get to the lock. Yes, it's slow and annoying. It keeps getting stuck on dead enemies, under shelves, you can barely see anything, and you're constantly being attacked by crablets. But it's still the fastest way I found to get it across the room. And after finally opening that door, we continue running again until the end of the level. Warehouse is pretty straightforward and just follows the speedrun route. We need to carefully climb onto this small ledge up here, but it's the same otherwise. I die running past the Omnis right here. This could have been a pain, but luckily I come back to life straight after. For Central, we need to go the long way around to the button which opens the huge door, since we can't climb to it or use a gun. The platform can be pulled with just our hands until we can press the button. Now we get to this part where we must use a glitch. The only way to the end of the level is through this roller door, but to open it we need the battery in this box which cannot be opened without gripping. No matter how hard you try, unless you actually grip the handle, the box will never open. So we have to clip through here by putting our head in this little gap, looking slightly to the right, and crouching. Then, like magic, we appear on the other side of the roller door. But how did that work? Well, I'll explain the theory of clipping through walls in Boneworks. You see, Ford's body, the one you're looking at right now, is actually an illusion. Have you ever noticed that things can pass through parts of your body? If you feel around, you can make out the actual shape of your physical body. The body you see simply tries its best to look like what you'd expect a body to look like based on where the physical body is, and doesn't actually affect the game world whatsoever. So what does this physical body look like? I don't know if you're ready for this, but Ford actually looks like this. That's right, this weird blobby thing is Arthur Ford's true form. His body is two tubes which fold when you crouch. The feet are a ball which changes size while jumping. There is a box for the chest which rotates depending on the position of the hands. He has floating hands and wrists. And finally, a thin, flat, square head. You may not like it, but this is what peak performance looks like. Anyway, back to the clipping. We can see that when we crouch, the body gets really deep, and although the game will stop you from standing up if there's not enough room above you, it will never stop you from crouching, even if you can't fit. When you crouch in a tight space like this, the physics engine has no choice but to spit you out in whatever direction is easiest. In our case, we jam ourselves between the concrete ledge and this small gap without collision behind the roller door. The game will try to push our head through this pipe a lot, but by tilting our head a bit, we can make it wider to stop that from happening. And that's how we get through. As I continue through the level, I somehow managed to die here. But just as I was about to restart, I came back to life. Even crazier though, is that it happens a second time where I get hit again and miraculously come back to life again. Normally I wouldn't die here at all, so for it to happen twice and to come back twice is amazing. I'm not sure if I'm really lucky or unlucky. For Tower, I perform the clip between the transformer and the wall into the green key room. This is done by facing the wall, pointing my arm backwards and crouching slightly. Note that because we can't grip, there's a chance that we fall through the ground and have to restart. Next we have to run this gauntlet between all the Omni guards. Without B-hopping, we can't move as fast as we would in a speedrun, and it's almost impossible not to die at least once. But after 3 attempts, I finally make it. Now there is a bit of running and climbing, which I'll fast forward through. For this next key, I'll leave the video speed at 4 times, so you can see what it would look like in normal speed to carry the key like this.
Okay, so we can see what's going on, and something is definitely controlling Middleman. They're pulling out boards on the 6 o'clock. Maybe they'll listen to I don't know, but all of this is super dangerous. So good luck.
Next up, we have a bunch of omnis to run past. I died heaps here, and I think if I'd gone along the wall on the inside, they wouldn't have spawned, so I really should have tried that first. But I don't have time to re-record this if I want to get the video out before Bone Lab. Just know that I died a lot before I got this run. We will play through Time Tower in the intended way of firing the gravity cores into the clock. To start off with, we push a crate to the first gun to make loading the gravity core easier. It's possible without it, just a bit harder. Next we deal with these null men so that they don't bother us while we're doing our thing. Once they're taken care of, we load the first gun by kicking the gravity core towards our crate, lifting it against the crate while in slow motion, then pushing it into the nozzle. Then we make sure the gun is perfectly lined up and ready to fire. We now repeat this process for the rest of the guns. Instead of firing each gun once they are ready, we want to set them all up so that all we have to do is press the button. If we fire them early, enemies will start spawning and disrupting our attempts to delicately load the gravity cores. Now that they're all lined up, we run around to each one and fire them. To complete dungeon, we can break out of the wall behind us by pushing the brick so we have a small ledge to stand on, then pushing it out the rest of the way with our head. We also don't have to worry about the button because we can clip through the gate by getting our body stuck in this tight gap. In addition to always being able to crouch, whether we have space or not, the game always lets us turn around, and we can abuse this to force our way through the gate. For arena, we simply climb over the wall with the help of a crate and make our way to the finish. And finally, we've reached the main event, Throne Room. This level is hard enough without gripping, but with only one controller, the difficulty is really cranked up. To scale the castle, we must stack these boxes 3 high in the left corner. I make sure they're very straight so that they don't move too much when I walk and jump on them, since they're pretty light. The reason I'm stacking them here is because in this corner there are 2 ledges formed by the bricks sticking out of the castle, which are just wide enough to stand on, and not too far apart, so I can jump between them all the way to the castle roof. Now that I'm on the boxes, I carefully jump onto the extremely thin ledge above me. On this ledge, I must constantly be walking into the wall, otherwise my feet will slip off. This is actually more difficult than it sounds, because for some reason the character will randomly shoot backwards very fast, and if you walk too fast into the wall, or don't react the instant you see this start to happen by running forwards to counteract it, you will be ejected from the ledge. As you can see, it's still not an easy jump to make, meaning you need to do a big jump in real life while also carefully balancing on this tiny ledge. Fortunately, this next ledge is a lot bigger and easier to jump from. From here we can easily reach the button that unlocks the doors and go meet the king. Defeating the king is as easy as a good headbutt to the face. Sometimes it takes a lot of tries, but if you're lucky like I am here, you can defeat him in a single hit. I lunge forward in real life to give myself a little extra speed, which helps.
Dude, they found you in the old offices.
This battery can be carried the same way as the keys. I almost drop it, but recover as it's falling. Even if it did land on the floor though, I could just roll it to the destination. Just like in the gripless run, I'll be pushing this tool crate over to the button so that I can jump from it once I'm ready to bring the claw down. Unlike in the gripless run, however, I also bring this crate to the button. I'll be leaning the tool crate on this one so that I can form a steep ramp which will give me some extra height. After this, I'll move the concrete barrier so I have enough room to get the claw onto the hook. I start by doing the crouch trick between the barrier and the hook, which pushes it back part of the way. Normally in the gripless run, I'd have just enough strength to tip it over by lifting my hands in the cutouts at the bottom of the barrier while pushing the top of it forwards with my head. But with only one hand, I can't quite do this and I have to resort to ramming it, inching it away millimeters at a time. This process goes on for a long time, until eventually I'm satisfied that I can fit the claw through the gap. Next I want to move the claw to the center of the room, and to do that, I need this table. Since the claw is too high for me to jump to, I need to stand on something on top of the transformer to reach it, and the table is a good shape to slide it up there as well as do a running jump off. Now I'm ready to jump to the claw. I jump carefully and on an angle to make sure I don't knock the table off the transformer. It's a big jump I need to do in real life to reach it, and I miss it. I do get up a couple of times but then fall off. I'll skip to this successful attempt. Once I'm up here, I can't quite jump high enough to reach the top of the claw, so I have to climb its supports one-handed. Before what you're seeing now, I also made sure that the claw was pointing backwards like this, so that I'd be able to jump from the supports to the top. Climbing onto this light in particular is very difficult because it's round on the top and your hand just wants to constantly slip off. This only gets more difficult when we need to briefly look away from our hand at the top of the claw where we're jumping to. In the end though, I managed to pull myself on top of the claw. Now that I'm up here, I need to move the claw, and I do this by running to the side while my body is stuck in place, so that my feet are pushing the claw. To achieve this, I push my head against the purple light on the ceiling, then switch to the girders on the side after I can't go any further with the light. Once it looks like I'm far enough, I drop down and do the jump to the button. By running up a ramp, then jumping, my forward momentum is redirected upwards and results in a higher jump that will allow my modest real-life jumping to reach all the way to the button. To reach the claw so I can pull it to the ground, I climb on top of the hook and then jump from there. By standing between the supports, I can push the claw from behind, steer by turning my head into the supports, and hold it down so it doesn't raise back up by using my arm. Now I just need to do one more jump to the button before I mount. And what a huge jump this is. And just before I leave, I'll take my trusty crate with me to make the ladder a little easier later. In a moment, I'll set up the crate so that I can do a jump off the top of it, and skip most of the annoying diagonal beams on this section before the ladder. Climbing upwards with one hand isn't too hard with slow motion. You just need to lift your body up, then quickly raise your hand and grab something higher, faster than gravity will let your body fall. However, these orange bars are an entirely different story. It's almost impossible to move your hand from one to the next when they're on the ceiling. The solution I found is to hook onto a bar with my head and then try and grab the next bar with my hand. The problem with this is that I can't see the next bar while my head is hooked on a bar, so I have to guess where the next bar is. If I accidentally touch the next bar, there's also a risk that I pull my head out and fall, and I have to hook my hand around the far side of the bar for this to work, so it's very delicate. And in case you were wondering, yes, I do look stupid doing this in real life. When going to the next bar, I quickly look at it, which causes my head to come off the previous one, and I have a split second to make sure my hand is firmly grasping the next bar. Of course, any falling from these bars means that you fall to the ground and you have to do it all again. You need to successfully climb all orange bars in succession. This is by far the hardest segment of this entire run. Once these bars start being vertical, it becomes a little easier. I was even able to rest my chin on this bar to pull myself up. And finally, once I'm on the ladder, I can just cruise upwards using the method I described before of pulling my body up, then quickly grabbing the next rung with my hand. It's not easy, obviously, but compared to the orange bars, this is a piece of cake. I've switched to 2x slow-mo now, and I've got a pretty good rhythm going, so I'm actually moving pretty fast up this ladder. With this last little ladder, I've completed the left controller only plus gripless challenge. My somewhat segmented run took 1 hour and 26 minutes. I'm very happy with this, but now I'm wondering, what's the next step? What could be harder than this? Well, I've actually already tried some harder runs, specifically right controller only plus gripless, where you cannot use the movement thumbstick, and armless, where you can use the controllers, but forward has no arms. And yes, these runs are possible, but I'll leave that for a future video. Thanks for watching.